Welcome to the next in the series of big interviews, and I am with this afternoon a true legend of the industry, Mr. Philip Soar. You've been around forever, and there's so many sides to you that I'm sure not everyone knows, which we will talk about, and lots of other interests. But tell us how did you start? How did you get into the industry? What happened?
Headhunted. I was a publisher, and I was running publishing companies in Germany, France, one in Japan that generated a lot of interest, a lot of publicity because it was so unusual for a British company to go into Japan in those days. And I just got approached. I got headhunted by Blenheim, which at the time was a very, very small company, 3 million a year profit, saying, we'd like to take some of our shows overseas, and you seem to have been running these overseas companies. Would you be interested?
Who were you talking to at Blenheim at the time?
It was basically Neville, Laurie a little bit, but mainly Neville.
Mainly Neville.
Yeah.
So when was this? This was what, 80s?
89.
89. Okay, exciting time. So, okay, so then you took that on, and wow, what a decade! I mean, it changed the industry. Let's be honest.
It was very interesting. I mean, Blenheim was not. I was going to say Blenheim was nothing. Blenheim had a very good base because it had some very good shows, but it was only making about 3 million at the time. And the big players were EMAP, Reed, obviously. But Blenheim had a rather different approach. I mean, we were much more aggressive on acquisitions. And really, it was really a piece of financial engineering. It really, really was. At the time, you could go out and you could buy really, really good products, like Batimat, the biggest exhibition in France, for 4 times profit. And what we were able to do, Neville had a background in the city, of course, and we were able to raise funds, and we were able to basically buy at incredibly low multiples, not remotely the kind of multiples you'd have to pay today. And as a result, you could build the company very, very quickly in a situation where really nobody else was buying. And the English companies really weren't buying very much outside the UK. And that was really what happened to Blenheim. It was a piece of financial engineering above all else. I'm not saying we didn't do great things. I mean, we created Premier Collections, which went from nothing to 15 million turnover in 2 or 3 years. But we got up to about 50 million by 1993. So I'm more bigger than Reed at that point. Interesting experience.
Mental experience. I mean, yeah, you play it down a bit, but let's be honest. I mean, well, from my point of view, I think that changed the industry forever.
It did a number of ways. First of all, Blenheim, we floated, and there was, of course, nobody else. No trade show company was on the stock market. I mean, Reed as a group was, but Reed exhibitions were only a small part of Reed. And because we were on the market, a lot more attention was paid to us. We used to get articles in the FT all the time, totally disproportionate to our size, but because we were interesting and we were different, that drew a lot of attention. And also it drew other investors. I mean, our first kind of private equity venture capital investment was in 1993, a company called Electra, which was a venture capital company. They bought 15% of the business. So it was kind of the beginning of people looking at the industry as somewhere to invest in. Before then, it was totally under the radar business. Nobody knew anything about it. And even at the time, I was surprised then, and I have continued to be surprised at the fact that the big media companies have really chosen not to invest in the space, despite all the attractions of the space. The big media companies tend to ignore it. Murdoch, a good example, never ever invested in trade shows.
No, you're right. And obviously a few of the bigger newspapers have tried an events division of their own, and it's...
Yeah, I mean, Mirror did it for a time, Telegraph did it, of course, relatively recently. But inevitably, because of the kind of media they were, they focused on the consumer side of it. That, okay, we've got the database, we've got the readers, we can turn that into consumer shows. And as we know, I mean, the money in trade shows is bluntly, it's in B2B, it's not in B2C.
So it's incredible. I mean, that first of all, that you changed the industry forever.
I did not change the industry. I was involved.
Yes,
by happenstance in the period that the industry changed. Yeah.
That episode did change the industry, and obviously now there's a lot of people to thank you for the multiples that exhibitions do get, because obviously it's changed dramatically. This is something you look at a lot and study a lot.
Spend my life looking at.
Yeah. So how's that graph gone? I mean, it's gone like that, but I mean, explain it to us.
I mean, it started off, as I said, when Blenheim, Steve Monington did most of the work on the acquisitions at the time. Blenheim was buying at 3-4 times. And this was because it was all under the radar. Nobody thought of these things. At the time, people were paying massive multiples for publications. One of my favourite stories is 1993. A magazine called TV Guide. If you know the States, TV Guide is always at the checkout, and TV Guide was sold for $3 billion in 1993. 2008, it was sold for $9 million. It went from $3 billion to $9 million, the biggest magazine in the United States. Whereas if you look at it from the trade show point of view, trade shows were selling at 3-4 times earnings, and by the time you got to 2008, was selling at 15 times earnings. It's a really interesting comparison.
It is.
Yeah.
So we're going to come back to where you think trade shows sit in the wider economy and how we're viewed now, etc., etc. But before that, let's talk about Phil and all your other very interesting parts. So tell me about Nottingham Forest.
I'd rather talk about Nottingham Forest when the season's over, to be honest with you.
Me too, about West Ham, so you have to deal with it.
Nottingham Forest is interesting. I was quite fortunate. Nottingham Forest was the only club. It still remained a club. It had 209 members, and each of them paid £1 to be a club member, and it had never had any capital investment at all. So it's completely different from every other club in the country. And eventually, after the days of Brian Clough, European Cup and all the rest of it, the club ran out of money, and therefore it had to do something. And therefore, it became possible to think about buying it. Now, if I'm Arsenal's official historian and I'm Tottenham's official historian.
This is, you can't just throw these things in. That's mental that you're the official historian for a number of clubs, aren't you? It's incredible.
But I could never have thought of buying an Arsenal or buying a Spurs because they were limited companies, they were privately owned, and they would cost whatever they would cost. But of course, Forest was a very unusual situation because it was politics, not economics. What you had to do is you had to get 75% of these 209 members to say, OK, we'll let you take the club over. And therefore, for about a year, I with really Nigel Ray, who used to own Saracens as well, it was a kind of political campaign going around meeting everybody, saying, look, I come from Nottingham, I write about football, I know a little bit about football, I've been a Forest supporter my whole life, and we know you've got to be taken over. And that's what happened. And we ended up with a big meeting, all 209 members in a room, in a very smoky room, with us making a proposal. The deal basically was they'd come third in 1996. I mean, they were a serious club. And we offered 17 million to buy this serious Premier League club. And we got 75% of the votes, and that was it. Now, I don't think 17 million would have got you anywhere with anybody else. But it was just because Forest was such a strange institution. And because of the Clough era, Clough so dominated the club that they used to elect committee members, and there were 9 committee members. But these committee members, they weren't really the directors of the club. They were literally committee members. And for 20 years, Brian Clough just ran everything, did everything.
Is it? Oh, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Do you miss it?
No, it was extremely interesting. It's a deathbed thing, isn't it? It's kind of I'd love to have bought my the Premier League club I supported as a child, and I did, and it was very interesting. But it's the first thing you find out when you're inside is that you don't know anything about football, and you would find the same at West Ham. You've been watching West Ham for 100 years since the 1923 Cup final. I know you have. But actually, if you got inside, you would see it differently. And it does look different. It's extremely interesting, but it's very different.
Just one more question on that. Just that is just one thought. It's, do they communicate well enough, the issues? Because obviously fans get frustrated.
You can't communicate.
You can't?
You can't, full stop. I mean, I used to do, and I still do, supporters meetings, and people will say, things like, this is terrible if we go down, like West Ham and Forest might do. Surely you've got clauses in the agreements whereby their salaries are cut by half. And you actually say, well, I know why you're saying that, but believe me, if you're trying to attract a player to the club and you say to them, they say, well, actually, I don't need to join you. I can join another 4 or 5 clubs and I don't need that in my contract. That kind of thing's happening all the time. And why players are not performing, why a particular player isn't being used in the team. There are all sorts of internal reasons for that, and you just can't talk about them.
All right, let's get back to the trade show industry. Now, it's now you talk a lot. You write very well. I love your articles for EN. Although some people, well, a few are cynical about it and say, and would suggest that you're feathering the bed for Closer Still and 19 with some of your articles.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, I can't imagine why anybody would say that. I mean, obviously you have to speak from personal experience, but you also have to be realistic. I mean, if we just take awards, for instance, we talk a lot about awards, and we're here at the awards ceremony now, the EN Awards. I mean, Closer Still has won 3 times as many awards since the time that Closer Still was able to enter awards, which was 2013, was our first year. I mean, that's simply factual. I mean, the fact that I say that occasionally, and I actually say this is illustrative of something, it is simply factual. It may be unfortunate that Closer Still does so well and the 19 does so well, but I like to think that's a reflection of just how good the companies are. And I'm not being critical of anybody else.
No, they're amazing, both of them, both absolutely fantastic companies they've built. How different are they?
How different are they?
Yeah.
They're considerable.
Do you follow the same template?
Considerable similarities. I mean, when Andy and I started Closer Still in 2009, you had it was £700,000 we put in between us. That was it. We had no staff, no people, no shows, no office, nothing but 700,000. And you have certain kind of guiding principles. Only invest in areas which is a growing percentage of GDP in the world. It's easy to say that. Anybody can say it. But then you have to try and stick to it. And actually, we've done very well at sticking to it, so that technology, in our case, AI, data center, et cetera, plus healthcare is still 75% of our business. And those are the areas we went into.
They're strict on that then. Can't imagine Andy was strict on that. I would imagine Andy really going, oh, let's do that.
No, Andy was strict on it. We were all strict on it. But I mean, Phil Nelson was the key man. I mean, Phil Nelson was the driver of the business, always the driver. You always need a genius. And Phil Nelson was our genius. And he was the one that kept everybody in line and just made sure you pushed and you pushed and you pushed.
Fantastic. And Close Still up for sale?
We're talking to people.
Okay, so here I am again with Phil. We're a few weeks on. Last time we met was just for the EN Awards, and we had a good chat. And this is an addendum because since then, something quite major has happened that we're going to discuss, and also discuss what that means for the industry at large. So welcome back, Phil.
Thank you, Julian.
And congratulations on a phenomenal deal. Second biggest, did you say?
Second biggest
exhibition
deal ever.
So just give us, the top line stats for that.
1.3 billion sterling, $1.77 billion. Of the 5 final bidders, 4 were American private equity companies. And so, you tended to talk in dollars as well as sterling.
Amazing. So that must have made quite a few of your staff quite happy, I'd imagine.
As far as I can tell, yes. I mean, we haven't, there's still a lot of detail to be worked out. But I mean, one of the really good things with us is that it does mean that a lot of people, hopefully we'll be very happy in a month or two. We actually have 370 employees present, or a small number of past employees, who will receive something worthwhile, very worthwhile from the deal. And I think I still think it makes us unique. I don't think there's another company in the industry where the proceeds, the benefits are shared out in the way that Closer Still does.
It's fairly unique in business, I would have thought. It's fantastic. No, it's great. And obviously, the hope is that a lot of those people at some point will also build their own things as well, and that's all great for the exhibition industry. You didn't want to leave the industry after a great experience like that. No one ever does anyway. So it's I think it's phenomenal. I mean, what do you think it means actually in the wider scheme for the industry? Because there's so much great PR come out of it. So this is great news all round, isn't it?
I think so. And of course, we've had only in the past few days, a few days prior to this interview, we had Emerald and Questex being acquired by Apollo. Apollo being one of the very, very biggest US private equity companies. They bought both and they're combining them. And again, those companies are both, they've kind of been on the market on and off for a couple of years. But the fact that Apollo have stepped in and have paid a very, very good price and are clearly hoping to build them, they're not buying them to leave them exactly as they are. They are intending to invest heavily in the industry with acquisition. So in a period of a month, you've had Closer Still, you've had Emerald, and you've had Questex, three of the biggest companies in the world, actually, all being sold. And it obviously does suggest that after a period where the industry was very quiet, I mean, almost constipated, that all of a sudden there is real interest. And it was very interesting reading the Wall Street Journal article, which described the Apollo bid for Emerald and Questex. And the Wall Street Journal also said, as the FT and Investors Chronicle had said, that trade show assets appear to be increasingly attractive in the world of AI because of face-to-face people meeting each other, and that makes exhibitions, trade shows, conferences rather more appealing than they might have been before the arrival of worldwide AI.
Really more important.
And it's interesting that even the Wall Street Journal is saying it. Yeah. So in the broadest sense, it's hard to believe it's anything other than very good for the industry overall.
That's fantastic. And I think also, do you see, is there ever a worry, I suppose, we've talked about this before, but that the bubble may burst at some point? Because
well, as I constantly say, and I know I'm tedious and I write it in the articles, trade shows have been around since 1240, and the basic model hasn't changed for 800 years. And you can say, well, we haven't had a bubble for 800 years. Why would we? Why would we have a bubble? I mean, as an industry overall, it doesn't grow at an enormous rate. I mean, it grows pretty much at the rate of worldwide GDP, which is maybe 3, 4, 5% a year. So it's not as if we're like Nvidia shares or Apple shares, which can double and treble in the pace of 2 or 3 years. I mean, as an industry, we're kind of slow growth because we do reflect. We are a proxy for world GDP. So there's no bubble developing there.
Fair. And what do you think now? Do you think this is going to open up various other deals in the market?
I mean, yes, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what those deals are. I mean, but I know from all the private equity people I talk to that, a number of other companies of a certain size are being looked at.
Yeah, I think we can all guess who they are. So yeah, but and you think that's going to be in the fairly imminent, or? Well,
let's say within 2 years. These things do take a long time. I mean, the thing that was most interesting about the Closer Still process, wasn't so much the price at the end of the day. It was really right at the end in the last week. You still had 5 very, very serious bidders, all of them private equity, and that's very unusual. I mean, most private equity deals, whether it's in our industry or any other industry, you're down to 2 people,
right,
possibly 3, but there were 5 people the last week, all were all seriously bidding, and that was a surprise. That was a surprise.
So how does that pan out then when you've got 5 like that? I mean,
well, it's not that different from selling your house. I mean, you have a really attractive house on, I don't know, Richmond Green maybe, or somewhere in Kingston or wherever, and people like it, and people come around and people make offers, and clearly what your estate agent does is talks to people and tries to get the highest offer, and that's somewhat simplistic, but that's how it works out.
And what will the landscape look like now going forward?
For Closer Still?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, happily, the investor base, they're completely new funds, but the core investors, Providence and Searchlight, are already heavily involved in the industry. Providence was a prior investor. Searchlight has a stake in Hive. So we're actually dealing with people who are very, very familiar with the industry, but very familiar with Closer Still. And our bankers are still the same bankers. They're coming in and continuing with the company. So fortunately, it doesn't mean any great upheaval, which is great for Gareth and Sam. It means we continue to work with the same people. I'm sure they will want to invest more. They don't do this on the basis that you have status. I mean, they will want to expand the company. They will be looking for acquisitions, but there's no great upheaval, which is really, really good for the existing team.
That's fantastic. And do you expect I mean, well, it needs huge deals, and obviously that does make people quite wealthy. Do you lose people as well, what generally happens?
Well, I can give you some numbers on that.
Yeah.
Last time, which was 2018, which was Providence, were the buyer at that time, we had 177 employees who were shareholders and who got significantly worthwhile chunks of money. Of those, okay, it's been 8 years, so it's been a long time. About 70 have left the company in that time. That's not a surprise. It's not an enormous number. One or two people were a surprise, but you had a significant number of people who were getting six-figure sums, and again, we're very unusual. This doesn't happen in our industry, and so you have some relatively young people who said, "Well, this might be the only time in my life I get a chance to go around the world, and just spend some of the money." And so we lost a few people for that reason. But it's not a great surprise. I hope we don't have much of that this time. I mean, it's a very good company to work for. A lot of the people we've got will be rolling over into the new company, so they'll carry on having shares in the new business, and obviously, that means they can look forward to something happening in 3, 4, 5 years' time. You would hope that people want to stay.
When you're such a machine now, and such a successful, well-oiled machine, here's a little controversial question for you. How important are those people? Are they quite replaceable? Does the machine carry the people?
I can be a bit controversial on this. I think when you're talking about people, I mean, the important cliche is everyone is the hero of their own lives. And if you're managing any business, any institution at all, you have to look at your people, and you have to always realise that everyone's the hero of their own lives, and therefore you have to see it not from your point of view, but from their point of view. And I actually think that it's the company that makes the people rather than the people that makes the company. Obviously, you want to employ the best people, and of course you do. Who's going to disagree with that? But it's actually the way the company operates, the culture of the company, which actually turns those people into the kind of people you want. And part of that, and closer still, has always been the whole shareholding element. So that the culture helps develop people because they're part of a culture that they like. I mean, sorry to go back to awards, but we win 3 times as many awards as any other trade show company, and part of that is, a large part is obviously the people. But you never lose sight in an industry like ours that the important people are actually not the people sitting around the boardroom table. The important people are the event directors, the marketing directors, the staff on the shows. They're the people that make it work. The London Vet Show is a fabulous show, turnover 9-10 million pounds, but I don't sell the space. I don't attract the visitors. We have a great team that have been there a long, long time. They're the people that actually make it work. And if you lose sight of that, which I think you can do the bigger and bigger trade shows get, then you will lose your way.
There aren't that many good people around though. Everybody always talks about it's the people. That's because there are not many good ones around, are they? You have to hold on to them. We fish in quite a small pond in the industry. We always talk about it.
Yeah, so. I mean, having lots of friends in lots of other industries, I mean, people say the same thing all the time. But certainly it's true. When I was in publishing, if we were looking for a senior executive in the publishing industry, you might well say, actually, shortlist, and you would come up with 6 or 7 people. And you say, they've got the experience, they're working for X, Y, and Z. And we've got a number of candidates, and we can employ any of them. I think it's certainly true that if you're talking about a senior position in this industry, you tend not to have a list of 6 or 7 candidates. I'm not sure why that's true, to be honest. And maybe I think there's an argument that we undervalue people with less experience. People coming through at junior levels and becoming more senior people. But yes, it's a truism in the industry. Yeah.
So the other big deal that went through, Emerald and Questex, what do you think that means for the industry at large? And how good a deal was that?
Well, it wasn't like closest to a deal. It's difficult to, I mean, I've got all the documents from the various parties who were involved, and they're being very, very cautious I mean, they've quoted a number for Emerald as 1.5 billion. Emerald was, the last time I was talking to the Emerald people, they were talking about 120, 130 million EBITDA. So that would give you 10 to 11 times maybe. Questex I don't have the numbers on because they've not been published. In fact, they've been deliberately not published as far as I can tell. So, I mean, it's a big deal in terms of the totality. I mean, the total amount of money involved is roughly the same as the Closer Still deal. But of course, combined, the two companies are very different. I mean, the combined size of the two companies in terms of turnover this year is $650 million, whereas Closer Still's turnover this year is about half that. So you're looking at...
Well, that's significant.
Yeah, I very often, judging companies by turnover is not necessarily the best way to judge things. But I think the important point is you've now got an owner, Apollo, that will be going out and buying, will be going out and spending. Yeah. Whereas Emerald and Questex together were in a rather different situation.
And also the size of these deals, just like you said, the pure size of them makes national news. We're in the news. Look at that. Our industry's in the news, which is great, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, what has changed, I really do think it's changed, is AI has affected us. Yeah. You're closer still, of course, because we have the biggest AI show in the world. We have all these data center shows dotted around the world, so that helps us. But actually, the perception of AI and the realization, which has taken some time to come through. It was Laurie at Manchester who first articulated this about a year ago. It's the first time I'd heard anybody articulate it, that actually trade shows, they're face-to-face. They can't be upset, disintermediated by AI because people like face-to-face.
You said that first, Laurie?
Laurie, it was the first time.
I said that first.
Did you? Okay. The first time I heard it was from Laurie, and that was about a year ago. And so I give her the credit for that. I wish I'd had that perception, but I didn't. I heard it from elsewhere.
Well, it's no, but all these things we've talked about this before. All these technology, the technological innovations that we've had. I mean, going right back to the fax machine, events are over. The internet, events are over. Email, events are over, and all they do is help.
Well, they seem to.
And yeah, the AI thing of, what's actually real and what you can actually trust. This is real, by the way. This is real. But it could not be, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could not be, but it is. It's worth clarifying that. I'm talking very specifically about trade shows. Yeah. And when the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times comments, they're talking about trade shows. We're not talking about consumer shows, which are obviously very, very different because by definition, consumer shows, consumers come to the event. But consumer shows don't experience the same effect. It's very specific to trade shows.
Yeah. So good times ahead, you think?
Yeah, I think the mood, I've been to a couple of conferences this week, I think the mood in the industry now has been considerably raised by these various deals, by the fact that it's very, very clear that there are a lot of people who have been quiescent for a time, but who are now looking at the industry and saying, actually, we want to buy into this industry. I use Closer Still. We had 5 private equity companies at the very last minute, the last 2 or 3 days. And that is really remarkable. And of the 4 that didn't acquire Closer Still, I know from talking to at least 2 of them, they've discovered the industry, they like the industry, they'd also looked at Clarion, they want to buy into this industry. So I think that means you've got a lot of people who want to buy in, and it also means you've got a lot of people who want to expand. And
I think also, sometimes it's, I'll talk to smaller independent organisers and they don't necessarily see the relevance of these huge deals for them, but it's massive because it's opening up the industry, it's everybody buying in. This is good news for everybody. And I think...
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So, I think it is. And on that note, well done and thank you. And onward and upward. So, what's saying about trade shows? Yes, you write, so your writings. And you talk quite a lot about the fact that there's no information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Which is, you're right, and a big bugbear. So where do we sit as an industry? Can we be taken seriously without that? With that.
I mean, you and I have been having this conversation for at least 25 years.
I think so. Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And I think you could probably say the lack of information doesn't appear to have damaged the industry particularly. And if you compare us with industries of which there's a lot of information, TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, most obviously, vast amount of information on those, they've fared relatively badly compared with trade shows. Now, all right, we can get into a debate about whether trade shows are a media form or not, and as you know, I have strong views on that. But actually, you can never prove it's not done us any harm, but it really doesn't appear to have done so, does it?
It's incredible. I mean, unbelievably robust industry, isn't it? I mean, unbelievably robust. Yeah, the the oscillations of everything coming in. That's the internet. Oh, I remember faxes were going to tear the industry down.
And certainly, and COVID was, of course.
Oh, yeah.
You remember Hopin,
course,
yeah, webinars capitalised at 7 billion. The trade show industry was never going to come back again. Everybody was saying. I remember writing 3 or 4 articles saying I've never seen such shit in the Times on that particular one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what happened then? What happened then? Exactly. And trade shows are very resilient. You know the line I use all the time. 1240 was the first trade show. Holy Roman Emperor gave a franchise to Frankfurt to run an annual trade show and guaranteed that there wouldn't be another one within 100 kilometres. That was 1240. You can still go to that trade show in Frankfurt now, 800 years later. And the underlying principles are exactly the same. It's trade, it's people buying, it's people selling, it's people in the same industry, comes around once a year, usually in the same place at the same time. It hasn't changed. It really hasn't. And of course, AI, I have to say, is helping us. There really is a real perception that trade shows, because they're face to face, because I can shake hands with you, because I know it's you, because I know it's not a bot on Zoom or on the phone. It's actually, and you get this feedback all the time in the financial world, and actually saying, this is really interesting. You are kind of extremely AI resilient, which makes you very unusual.
It's such a good point, and really fundamental. I think that the more technology comes in and gives us all these options, the more people need, have a basic need to make sure it's Julian talking to Phil. It's there's nothing else going on here, and
also there is I'm a human being, you're a human being. There is a drive to meet people. There's a drive to say, yeah, I'm quite happy to go to Birmingham or go to Excel or Dusseldorf or wherever else and meet these people. I enjoy that. I quite enjoy doing that. I can learn things that way rather than sitting at home and watching webinars. There's nothing wrong with webinars. Closer Still runs lots of webinars, in the right place for the right reasons. But, there's clearly a human drive to get together and the resurgence after COVID, I think, showed it better than anything. We went through a period when it was, my God, this industry is hopeless. Look how easily it's, there's a small little virus and it seems to have killed the industry off. It's completely.
Well, we were outlawed. I mean, it's a bit, but we were outlawed, weren't we?
And then 2-3 years later, the argument turns around. The argument is actually, look how bloody resilient this industry is. It was dead for 18 months, 2 years. Nothing can kill this industry off. And it's a funny thing to say, but in terms of the value of the industry, it's almost worked in our favour that COVID came in and we recovered from it so well.
I'd say you're right there. Yeah. Let me think about that. Yeah. I think so. I think we've come out stronger, yeah. Yeah. I feel we have. Yeah, interesting. Let's talk about awards. Now, you like winning awards. You're good at winning awards. You understand the importance of awards.
Certainly do.
And they are value. And obviously, I am very much a fan of the award. And we get that at school. At school, you're given awards at the end of the year. Why? Because people want to improve. And that's so. Why is it that people are so cynical about awards? Why is it that we're getting less entries? What's your view on this?
Again, something that you and I have talked about many, many times, and I know Closer Still and 19 have got this reputation. In fact, Luke was telling me when we were walking around a little bit earlier, he said, yes, when I first came in, these weren't known as the EN Awards, they were known as the Closer Still Awards. And
I like that.
well, I think to us it's terribly obvious, isn't it? It isn't kind of that I or Peter Jones or Alison Jackson want to go around bragging about the awards. It's absolutely great for your people. You know, if you're working on a show and the company says that's a really good show, we want to enter you for this award, for that award, or if you're an individual, say you should really be in the Salesperson of the Year award. We really rate you for that, and you know we'll produce the documentation and the entry and all the rest of it, and you go in and you win. It creates a tremendous buzz for the people that have won the awards, for the teams, and for everybody else. It says, you know, the company values it, the company values each of us. It just, you know, the warm feeling you get from it. I did do a piece which, in fact, hasn't been published yet, and I was really shocked by this. There was a couple of awards earlier in the year. It was the AAO People Awards and the EN 30 under 30. Yeah, and you looked at those. So if you like, between them, there were kind of 49 awards, if you can call them that. Closest Still than 19 won 19 of the 49 awards. I'm not joking, 19. I added it up and I thought, this can't be true. This is just stupid. And it was 19 out of 40. And I have done a piece about it, although it hasn't been published yet. And it followed exactly that point. These things are really important. You know, this the 30 under 30. You're recognizing people. You're saying to your own people, you know, you come in for this. You're important. You're good. And you know, the effect it has on people of doing these things and winning these things is tremendous. That's the only reason we do it. We don't do it because we're trying to prove anything particularly. It's just really, really good for our employees.
It doesn't like winning an award. I mean, do you think it's a protection thing? You know, you hear a lot, sort of a little bit like teenage boys in the playground. You know, it's better to say you don't like that girl and actually try and you know throw mud at her, and who would want her anyway, than have the rejection. Is it a bit of that? If I don't enter and I slag the awards off, that protects me.
As somebody who has spent much of his life being rejected in exactly the form that you're talking about, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I can quote, but I won't quote, one of our bigger companies, one of our big 6 companies that refuses to enter awards now because thought they should have won a couple of awards, X, Y, and Z, just won't even enter.
There's a few of them.
I'm thinking of one in particular, but you know, clearly we don't want to be, don't want a slander suit, so I won't. It's odd. It seems to be something to do with the bigger and bigger you get. You know, the top gets far remote from the people that matter, the people that are running the shows, the people that are working on the shows, and therefore the top doesn't think about the importance of those people. It's a somewhat crass thing to say, but you get too far removed, and you just have to avoid that at all costs. You have to recognise that those are the people that matter.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
But actually, in a sense, there's no point asking me why people don't enter awards, because, you know, because we do. Yeah, you need to talk to the people that don't.
And it feels nice when you walk in. I'm proud of it. You know, I come in and I like it. That makes me feel good. But I'm sure that makes people feel good. It looks biased. Would like to see that.
Of course they do.
I mean, I was going to say, I've always said that if you're going to a village and you don't know any restaurants in the village, one's an award winner, one's not. Where'd you go?
Yeah. And okay, we're always talking to financial institutions, obviously, private equity. It does us no harm. I'm talking about Closer Still, for the fact that Closer Still has won 3 times as many awards as anybody else in the industry. You don't spend a lot of time worrying about it. It's a kind of soft power thing. You know, actually, you know, you can see all the numbers, you can do all of these things, but actually, look at this. This is telling you something important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I fully agree. And still on awards, I mean, obviously you were an early winner of the Pioneer Award when we introduced it, rightly so. And I can say this because obviously Eric's won it tonight.
Yes.
Worthy winner?
Oh yes. Yeah, I mean, Easy Fair's fabulous company. Done tremendously, unusual company, doing different things. And it's always very interesting to see people with different models. And his early model was very, very interesting. He spent a lot of time studying it and thinking about it. And of course, he always taking a very, very long-term view, you know, owning the venues as well, long-term view of what he's doing and what he was building up. He wasn't attempting to, I don't know, have £100 million show in Vegas or anything like that. And of course, it's been tremendously strong on AI. What they've done on AI has been a very, very interesting indeed. I mean, he's been leader on that in the industry, and I've watched that very carefully.
Yeah, he's but here's my next question, which is probably more difficult to answer, because how long have we been in the Pioneer Award now? 15 years, 16 years, I don't know. Who's next?
12, wasn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
But who's next? Who's left? Come on, Phil. Who's on the list that I haven't done yet?
Well, you could always go back to previous winners and just say, I mean, yeah, we can't think of anybody else, therefore,
No, Phil, I'm not doing that. But seriously, I mean, are we getting a bit threadbare?
Are you saying there aren't any new people coming
No,
through?
of course I'm not saying that. I'm saying who do you see? All right, that's a better way of putting it. Who do you see over the next 10 years as getting into that bracket? I mean, I suppose Mark, doing what he's doing is... No?
M.I.C.E, of course.
Mike, yeah.
I shouldn't talk about 19. 19 is still, 19 is quite a big company now, but it's...
Yeah, you're 2 at 19, yeah.
Are contenders.
Who else? Who else do you think's on the rack? Who could push into that league, if you like, over the next 10 years, do you think?
Look, there are some people I know who've got 1 or 2 shows and who are very, very interesting. But it would be unfair to say, I think X would be, given where they are at the moment. You can see that they have potential.
But you're encouraged from what you've seen at that level?
Yeah. Yeah. I spend a lot of time particularly talking to the M.I.C.E about who's doing what and what is happening and what might happen. I don't, just out of interest, not because we're rushing off to buy people or anything like that.
What do you think? Since you mentioned the NEC, what a strange time we have for venues. Now, you've obviously always been quite sure, and I like your point about we don't need the venue, the venue space. So there was talk, wasn't there, about building another venue out. When was this? About 10 years ago? There was talk about building another venue out towards Reading or somewhere, was it?
Well, where the M4, M25, Great Western Railway line, that was the alternative to XL. That was the alternative.
Oh, was it? Is the alternative? Oh, was it that long ago? Bloody hell.
Because you have Heathrow, you have the railway lines, you have the motorways, you have all the hotels. And there was space at the time. And that was what was being pushed by, not so much by the industry, but by a lot of politicians. But in the end, it went to Docklands because the government was so desperate to rejuvenate Docklands. And it was part of the, we've got to put money in here because of the rejuvenation.
It's a good plan in the end, though.
Yeah, I mean, but for a long, long time, didn't work very well because of the transport mix.
No, it suffered.
It's tremendous now.
Fantastic now, absolutely fantastic. But what about the other venues? I mean, Olympia obviously is... What do you make of that?
Well, we like it. We still run a lot of shows there. I mean, for certain kinds of show, it works very well. But I think we've had 5 shows in the last 4 years that have got to a size where you simply have to move them out. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as there is space at XL. But obviously for a lot of relatively specialist London-orientated West London shows, I think it works very, very well. I'm quite positive about it. I mean, I don't know how the whole development's going to work. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it open and actually just seeing really what it's like.
Yeah, I guess, we'll have to make our decision there. It's just a lot of shows have made the journey across London now, but and they don't seem to be fighting to hold on to them. I don't know. That might be untrue. I don't know.
I don't know that. I mean, I only know what my own companies do. Obviously, I don't know how other people are reacting to that.
And any scene?
Well, we have the biggest show at the NEC now. 19 does.
Are you the biggest client at the NEC?
Security show.
Are you the biggest client overall at the NEC?
Closer still, plus 19 is the biggest client. Yeah. But yeah, by some distance. We have 2 really massive shows there. Our security show is, I think, now the biggest in terms of, not in terms of square meters, because of course some of the consumer shows take, but in terms of revenue, there, it works incredibly well for the right sort of shows, doesn't it? Ian is moving to COO, of course, now, which is good for Ian, I think. And of course, Melanie did a lot of work changing, getting rid of the catering, getting rid of the ticketing, getting rid of the other parts of the other places where they were running things, car parking, and franchising out and becoming essentially just a venue. Sorry, it's not just a venue; it's a simplistic thing to say. And so they've, if you like, they've tidied up their structure. They're a much simpler structure now. But of course, what they haven't got, they were obviously hoping that when HS2 opened, which it should have done by now, they were going to be the interchange point, and therefore they had all the land, and therefore you could start building 2-bedroom flats, 42 minutes from Euston. By 2038, you might be 42 minutes from Old Oak Common, or not, as the case may be. So, if you like, the property play hasn't really come through.
But in general, would you say our venues, I mean, Laurie's doing a great job at Manchester, Dan at the SEC, would you say in general our venues are in good shape?
Yes, I would. I mean, again, my two companies, we work in the NEC and we work in Excel and a little bit in Olympia for particular specific shows. We don't, plough the Liverpool, Manchester, Harrogate, Glasgow route particularly. So I don't have that much experience of those venues today.
So the venues are okay in good shape. The UK in good shape. What do you make of the fact that I think I said, oh God, some time ago now, that if there's a World Cup for exhibitions, England would win it, because the industry is so unique here. It's all the big companies are here. I feel like, I go on these SciShow things, the UFI things, and I listen to the chat, and it's miles behind us. So come on, tell me about that. Why are we so far ahead, and are we proud of that? And do we say enough about it?
I mean, people like myself and Doug Emsley try and say a lot about it. You have to work out who, if anybody's listening. Of course, we can say what we like within the industry, and we can occasionally get a decent piece in the Financial Times, of which there was one not long ago, about this industry is one of only 4 or 5 industries where Britain leads the world. It's almost impossible to come up with industries now where Britain leads the world. You talk about football, maybe. You talk about F1, maybe. But there's virtually nothing else. So we're really, really unusual because we've got all these companies in West London which do dominate the world, with the exception, of course, of the German M.I.C.E, which is a completely different model. And
there's some broken bits in the German economy as well. I mean, it's seriously broken. So, I mean, I think, but which is all into it,
And one of the debates is, well, how did this come about? Because we're a relatively minor exhibition market, relatively minor. We're a provincial market, really.
Yes, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, we have very, very few genuinely serious international shows. There are very few DSEIs.
Yeah.
So how did it come about? I'm pretty well convinced it came about simply because of the lack of government interest and the lack of government and local authority funding. Why get it round? If you think about Germany, the German model developed because it's the cities themselves, the Länder, who developed the Messen. Messen just means congregation, of course, in German. They developed their own trade shows. They developed their own facilities because they wanted to bring trade into the city, along with the Frankfurt 1240 story. That's how the German Messe model developed, and a similar model developed in Italy, similar model in Spain to a degree, China to a degree, and that became the model.
It makes sense, doesn't it? I mean,
You go to the States, and every city in the States, even little cities, 100,000 people, they've all got their convention centres. And that, of course, is government money, is city money. It's mainly city money. You go to Cleveland. I mean, I can't name a single show that's running Cleveland, but they've got this bloody big exhibition centre, which is funded by the city. They've all got them, and they all have their wedding shows and their gift shows and whatever else. What's interesting about the UK is the government's never given up about us. No interest at all. No investment. Birmingham NEC had to be done by Solihull, Warwickshire, Birmingham County Council. Virtually no government backing. Excel was odd because they were desperate to develop Docklands.
Yeah.
The individual cities, we still do not have a conference hall in London which can hold the big American medical conferences. They can go to Amsterdam, they can go to Barcelona, they can go to Rome, they can go to Paris. We don't have one. We don't have one big enough to hold 7,000-8,000 people in London. A city is big as a city, and you go to the smaller cities. Of course, they don't have these facilities at all. And so what happened was, because there was no government involvement, because there was no public money, that's why we developed this, if you like, this entrepreneurial model, the model that the Germans still call the pirates. They still call us the pirates, the Anglo-Saxon pirates. If you go back to the time we were talking about, Blenheim, 1990s, Reed in the 1990s, that's when we were piratical. We didn't have these sort of guaranteed, we've got a big hall, therefore our job is simply to fill the hall routine. It was, we've got to invest money. London was a good place to invest money because you raise money in London. It's a good place to raise money. What more are you going to do? We have to go out and buy things because that's how we can develop. Whereas at Frankfurt, it's only relatively recently that they've kind of tried to expand. Their model was simply, we have this massive hall, we've got to find ways of filling it.
Yeah.
And that's why the whole West London thing developed, because of the lack of government and city funding. That's why.
It's a really good theory. I like it. And long may it last, or do we need the government? The only thing is, I think you touched it there. It's the recognition, I suppose. But what does that bring as well if we do get that recognition? The exhibition industry is still something that, you know, if you go to a Christmas party and say, what do you do? I do this, and no one has a clue what you're talking about.
You're just sitting in the dark. I've spent, certainly back in the days when I was chief executive of Blenheim, I used to have meetings at various departments. I would meet junior ministers. I would meet, local MPs. Local MPs for Birmingham were very, very good because they want to bring stuff into Birmingham. But you could never get any government interest. I mean, there's no point pretending that there's any government. Where are we? Department of Media and Sport, are we still? I can't remember.
Do you know what? It changed, didn't it? Because M.I.C.E was doing some stuff. Do you remember during COVID? And we were trying to get that changed. That was one of the big kind of projects because we had nothing else to do during COVID. I'm not sure if we got into a different categorisation. I can't remember.
Still, the department to say, are we media, are we sport, or are we the and part of it with nothing? And nobody at the Department of Media, Sport, or whatever it's called now, has any interest in trade shows because they've got media, they've got sport.
I mean, I think COVID actually, again, highlighted we've always known this, but to the wider industry, just how little interest there was from the government or even knowledge about our industry.
What all the government was interested in is trying to pretend they were going to put people into the NEC and Excel and spent millions and millions on it. And I think in the end, Jeremy said they had 14 really quite well recovering patients in Excel, and that was it.
Oh, did they have 14? I always tell that story that they had none, but it's 14, all right. I'll correct my story.
They weren't, because you couldn't have sick people in there because you needed all the paraphernalia. You could only have recovering people in there.
Ridiculous.
And
God. What was the first show you ran out of COVID? Do you remember? Because we did Confex.
Yeah, we ran the 19 security show on the 1st of September 2021, which was the day that they were released to run shows. And we had a year before, the show always does run in April, but we'd actually said something like 12 months before, we're not going to be able to run it in April. Can we run it in September? We'd said this to Ian, the NEC. And we'd set the date, 1st of September, obviously not having any idea. And it just so happened that was the week they were able to open.
No, see, yeah, because we did Confex about a week later, I think. Yeah. I mean, it was still quite sparse, that Confex. Well, like this year was good. Yeah, blimey. Interesting times. So, what now for Phil Soar? What are you going to do now? Are you going to carry on forever?
I've got to carry on. We need the money. You need the money. You don't know my grandchildren. I mean, you need the money. We really do. Can't give up.
What are you doing with yourself? Still playing tennis?
Yeah, playing tennis. Although I pulled a hamstring.
Did you?
When you get to my age, hamstring pulls are really difficult. They really take ages to recover from them. Oh. Yeah, playing tennis, skiing when I can, but the hamstring doesn't help with skiing either. Yeah. Traveling a lot. But, closest still to 19. I mean, I'm not the CEO. I'm not running them, but it's still, a fair bit to do on the financial side, and I like going to the shows. I was in New York last week for a couple of shows.
Nice. What do you do? You have some other interests, didn't you?
I got a publishing company,
Yeah.
a French publishing company.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
How's that?
Well, it's mainly magazines, and so I won't say it's struggling, but it's not going to lift the roof off.
So, who do you see as Greg Hitchin was saying to me that Terrapin are flying? Do you see there as a...
He tells me the same every time I see him. In fact, I said, "Don't look at me, Greg. I'm not buying you."
But he thinks they're coming up, quite quick. What do you think?
But yeah, I mean, he said they are. Yes, I mean, they've done well. They've done well with solar. Obviously, that's their big number one investment. Yes, certainly. I mean, certainly people have been talking about them, and I think Greg's obviously been chatting to people. I don't know whether Tony, who's the principal owner, who's still in Australia, whether he wants to. I assume he does, because Greg wouldn't be talking about it unless Tony had given him the go ahead.
But
Good business. I mean, it's still got a lot of conference content, of course. Closest to it is a pretty pure trade show business.
Yeah.
62 trade shows and a certain number of one-to-ones. So that makes it a slightly different model. But yeah.
And Doug and Mike are a good combo, aren't they?
Yeah, that's great. And they're expanding tremendously. The big new German show is excellent. That's going well. I mean, it's extremely interesting.
Good partnership, that, I think, those two. Yeah. Like your PJ and AJ, that's a...
Although Doug, I presume, is still in Dubai. I don't know whether he's come back or not. He's only going to come back temporarily, but I don't know whether he's in London or he's in Dubai.
So charging for visitors is a thing that is starting to be discussed seriously. Nerve-wracking.
It's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult to charge them, but it's not whether they're going to come.
What I mean is, it's very easy to test.
Okay.
And with any new idea or different idea, the first thing you look at is ways of testing so that you can just work out what the reaction is, as opposed to just ploughing straight in. It comes from, it wasn't that long ago that 50% of your visitors were walk-ups. 20 years ago, 50% of your visitors were walk-ups. Now you get virtually no walk-ups. Now, I can't remember what our numbers are, 97% of people who come to our shows, that's a hell of a lot of people, are pre-registered, because it's so easy to pre-register, no problem at all. So everybody is used to pre-registering. They're used to the registration forms, which is just the same as booking a restaurant, booking a cinema, booking a theatre. Okay, and therefore it is relatively easy to test whether at the bottom, registration fee, £5, give us your credit card number, because everybody is so used to it now. And very often it's a company credit card number, and it's just utterly familiar. And it's extremely easy to test, because you can test it on split lists. You can actually say, okay, I've got 30,000 people on my email database. I'll test it with 10,000. And I've got another 20,000 I'm not testing it with, and I'll see what happens.
Is it worth it for a £5?
Well, I don't know. How many visitors does Closer still have to its events this year? 20, somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million.
That's worth it.
You get the idea? And we do have a number of shows. DSEI charge for visitors and generate I happen to know the number, but I'm not going to quote it. DSEI charge for visitors and generate a really substantial amount of money, in the millions, from charging for visitors. And we have a number of odd selected shows around that do it, and have always done it.
But why would we charge visitors? Just because, and the reason I asked that, is this just about generating revenue, or do you think that now, obviously the trade show model has changed. I remember you and I actually, again, talking about this in the 90s, Phil, about how it had to change and bring in content because there was no editorial as such. So it's changed dramatically over. Now, do you think that we provide that level of value, that it's reasonable to charge, or is it just a question of it's an opportunity to generate?
I think, why therefore do the majority of German shows charge visitors? Why do a large number of Spanish shows charge visitors? what's different from a trade show in Frankfurt, from a trade show in Birmingham? It's just that we historically haven't, whereas Germany has.
But we're unique. I don't know. We are unique. We're a unique part of the industry.
Clearly, I'm talking as somebody who owns, or actually is a part owner of exhibition trade show assets. And clearly all the time you're looking to, you have private equity companies and, they're looking over your shoulder and saying, how well are you doing? How well are you not doing? So all the time you're looking at ways of obviously providing good services, but also increasing your revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. And
should we concentrate more on the visitor experience in that case in order to get that number up, maybe? I mean, it's not the question of I'm anti the charging. I think it's just that you just want to feel that we're giving really good value.
we do. I mean, you're quite right about content. I mean, the amount of content that, and again, I'll talk about closer still in 19, the amount of content in our shows is absolutely enormous now. You go to the vet show, you've got 150 different conference sessions for people to attend. Some of them in a theatre with 1,800 people, and they're packed all the time. And then you put them on YouTube afterwards, so they can be seen on YouTube. So we do provide a lot of content. There's a certain amount of festivalisation, although I think that applies to so few events that it really isn't the norm. I know Informer talk about it a lot, but
yeah, I agree. It's true.
So I mean, we are investing in the events. We're investing in them all the time because we have to. And also, if you look across the whole industry, and I'm really using the SASE reports because that's the only information that we have, which is that we can use, and that's been going a decade now. I mean, the actual number of visitors at shows has been declining.
Yeah,
it's been declining at between 1% and 2% a year.
According to the SASE report, I mean, trade shows have been pretty stable in terms of attendance for the last decade, really. Whereas, as you say, the consumer shows probably fallen off by about a third in attendance in the same time period.
Now, all right, admittedly, the decline in consumer shows has been far more than the decline in trade shows. Trade shows, it's been a relatively small decline, but it is a decline nonetheless. So the fact that the numbers are declining means you have to think a little bit about how you're reacting to that. You still have shareholders. You're still running a business.
Do you think there'll be a price point then? So for example, you said a £5 there to test it, but is there a price point?
I think the price point is nominal. Yes, and as I say, the crucial thing isn't do it or not do it. The crucial thing is, can you find a way of testing it, and can you learn from what you test? And having learned from testing it and researching it on maybe 2 or 3 different shows, from that, can you draw conclusions?
Yeah, no, I get that. I definitely think I'm very conscious, trying things with complex all the time, about improving the visitor experience generally, and then if they're adding value that way, I think there may be an argument for that. But it's definitely an interesting one, always interesting. Just go back to that point about the model in Europe. And I was thinking when you were saying that, you said, and Spain obviously followed that model. Now, do you think the entrepreneurial spirit of the UK will infect in a good way everybody else eventually? You look at somewhere like Spain, and we went to a conference there in Valencia. Was it UFI? I can't remember. It was really sad because obviously Valencia had invested in this huge exhibition centre and all these hotels, and they're all derelict. Because no one goes, and it's just like, oh yeah, well every city's got an exhibition centre. Well, build one.
I mean, I don't want to use Manchester and Liverpool as examples, but they have the terrible problem, don't they? You go to an exhibition in Spain, and you go to Madrid or you go to Barcelona. Yeah. Bang. We have some incredibly good shows in Madrid and Barcelona, but we don't have any in Valencia. We don't have any in Pamplona. We don't have it.
No, that's not bad. But yeah, so there is. Do you think our bravery, our pioneering approach to it, our entrepreneurial approach, will eventually?
It doesn't seem to have happened, does it?
But we're still getting better, I think.
If you look across Europe, I mean, you have GL in France, of course, but that is still a services venue. And you look at the States. Of course, there are lots of massive association shows in the States, but that's not what we're talking about. What have you actually got in the States? You've got Emerald. And name me somebody else. So you really would have thought, if you're thinking of entrepreneurial people, why isn't it the States that's actually created these massive trade shows companies?
I agree, but again, I think we're leading the way, and it does take time, because if you look at the industry now, I mean, look, we do the indies now, and you look at that list, and there's probably, I don't want to quote out, but about 450 organisers of some description. I mean, that's a huge increase over the last 30 years, and anyone can be an exhibition organiser, as we know. There's no barrier to entry, so and
I mean, well, you can be an exhibition organiser. The barriers to entry to run a really significant show, of course, are enormous because of the slot system. But anybody can run a conference in a hotel.
Yes, absolutely. And so maybe I don't know, if we talk more about us being number one, whether that will infect the other countries, because it does seem to work so well here. I don't know.
Well, it hasn't so far, has it?
No.
There have been examples. VNU was a good example, which was bought up. Was it bought up by UBM? I think it was. There have been one or two examples. I mean, Eric, of course, is Benelux, and that's where he started. So he's got a good example. But in a way, his expansion was into, if you like, the West London base and working out of West London. So he was an example. VNU was an example. You see, I can't think of many others.
I can't. But that allows. Is that good news for us, because it allows us to pick our countries and geo-adapt, geo-clone, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, we're not UK companies, are we? I mean, Informer's UK turnover is about 1% of their turnover. Reed's is less than 10. I mean, even closer still, which of course is a relatively new company, only 15 years old in effect, and started from nothing. Our UK turnover is below 30% now. So you don't think of yourself as London is a world city and you're based in London, but actually you spend your life at Heathrow.
So it's probably good news then that they're not entrepreneurial, because we can be entrepreneurial for them in their country.
Well, it depends. I'm quite sure if you went to Paris now and talked to some of my publishing colleagues in Paris and said, "Well, you're not entrepreneurial, are you?" They'd be very unhappy.
What, the French would be upset about something we said? Okay, so how old are you now, Phil? Come on, tell me, how old are you now?
78.
78. So have you got another company in you after 19?
The trouble is, my wife might watch this, and then I don't want to. I've got a couple of other investments, which are small and which are very seed investments. I don't do anything which is 19 isn't competitive with Closer Still, and nothing else I do is competitive. That's part of the deal that 19 has to stay in those lanes. I got a couple of investments, but I think they're likely to be more like sleeping investments. But at this point, there's no point or basis for stopping.
No slowing down. Good man.
Because one day Closer Still will be sold. One day 19 might be sold. Maybe not. Who knows? We don't know what the markets are going to do. We have no idea what the markets are going to do. So no, I don't think so.
Well,
I know, as I've said, we need the money. We do need the money.
Well, we don't want you to stop. As always, been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, mate.
And good luck tonight. I think it'll be good tonight. It feels very good.
Thanks, mate.